Welcome to Abilities United presents Community Connections, a program dedicated to those individuals living with a developmental or physical challenge. I'm Andrea Thronson, Community Connections developer. Tonight is a really special evening for us as we kick off our Abilities United 50th anniversary. We've got a really fun show for you with a couple of field shoots. And first of all, let me introduce a couple of our guests. With me tonight we have Linda Steele, who is the Executive Director of Abilities United. Welcome, Linda.
Happy to be here.
And we also have Dr. Harry Hartzell, who was a former board member of Abilities United, correct?
Glad to be here, yes.
Thank you. Before we get started into our discussion, what I'd like to do is just off the top show a brief video that we've done that kind of highlights some of the work that Abilities United has done over the years. Let's have a look.
Abilities United has adapted by readdressing its own identity.
Some of the greatest changes that I've seen is the movement towards from integration to inclusion.
The changes that I've seen in the agency is the focus on inclusion more and more.
People teaming up together with varied abilities, finding ways to make an impact in the community by finding needs and filling them.
We constantly trying to improve our services. All of us together, like a big family, and trying to just have a positive impact in whoever we can touch their lives.
Abilities United finds ways to provide opportunities for participants to express their abilities.
Learn how to be independent and learn how to take care of myself.
I guess mostly I have learned socialism, as in how to be social.
Abilities United has become more independent by itself.
Abilities United has helped Nicholas a lot in developing his skills in art.
Shopping skills, cooking, that sort of thing, balancing his checking account. And then that eventually worked into a job placement at Safeway.
Yes, I have been a courtesy clerk for 6 years.
Help somebody to realize their potential is what keeps me here.
The best part about working here are the people. They're wonderful people.
The most exciting thing I've learned is that everything is possible.
Abilities United, it helps me how I work better.
It's definitely not impossible if you have the right tools.
Truly, the joy that I get is from the clients.
He's just a remarkable young man.
The Abilities United gave me this wonderful opportunity job I have.
We've come a long way over the years, and you know, as we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, I'm wondering, Linda, if you could give us a little bit of an overview of what was it like, 50 years ago in the world of disabilities, and a little bit of a view up till now, what's happened?
Well, today is a very exciting day for us because this was the day 50 years ago that the California State Secretary signed our incorporation papers as an organization for Abilities United. So it really is our 50th anniversary today. What my career has spanned, and it goes back a ways. I started as a social worker back in the 60s, and at that time I was a student intern in a state institution for people with disabilities in England. And those were the days where people with disabilities were either placed in an institution miles away from the community, or they were at home with a family that was trying to do the best they could for them, but there were no services in the community like Abilities United provides today. So what was happening at that time was that these institutions were really beginning to be exposed for some of the very worst institutional practices possible, both in England and in this country and elsewhere. And so there was a lot of neglect and abuse and abandonment of people with disabilities, as if they had no purpose, they were seen as not valued by society or the community, and were left to their own devices in these institutions where the care was questionable at best. So I was very involved in the beginning of a movement to close those institutions down, and it was really an issue of social justice and human rights that institutional movement and the trying to bring those institutions into compliance with the law, first of all, and then for some of us to see that there were alternatives in the community for people that we could create together. And so I was fortunate in my career because there's been a real revolution, a real change over this period of time. So what happened is parents came together, similar to the founding members of our own organization, Abilities United, and they saw that there had to be a different future for their sons or daughters, and they believed in their right to live in the community just like everybody else. And so they banded together across this country and in other countries to really develop services in the community where their sons and daughters could participate. And that was the beginning of organizations like ours across this country and elsewhere. And so it made it possible for people to be present in the community. That was the first change that took place. And then slowly but surely people thought, well, being present isn't enough. We want to actually participate and be integrated into the community. And so services were developed to really make that possible. And at that time, I mean, there was no special education, there were no services in place to help people get employment or to live even on their own, which is the last thing anyone was really thinking at this point. And so as the services began to be developed, we began to see what was possible for people with disabilities and how we had to work with the community to help that integration take place. And today, it's remarkable when you look back. It's a short period of time, really, that all of these changes have taken place. But today, we're looking at taking the next step beyond integration into full inclusion of people with developmental and physical challenges in the community. And I think we're there. I think there's a lot of frontiers that we've challenged and we've overcome, and there's still more to do. But the sense of inclusion, the desire to make that possible for people who are different, who aren't maybe like the rest of us, but can participate and be a contributing member to society is really critical today. And that's the mission that we're taking forward at Abilities United, hopefully in the next 50 years of our services. So it's very different from where I started with people shut away to today, where people are really valued for who they are and what contribution they can make to the community. So it's a very different set of circumstances.
So within the span of 50 years, or just in the lifetime of your career, it's gone from institutionalizing to our participants working out in the community and being a vital part. We did 3,000 community service hours this year. I mean, that's a huge leap in a very small amount of time. So,
and we should all be very proud of that, particularly the people that we're serving, because they've had to overcome so much to get to this point, and they're still working at it and now advocating for themselves so that they are heard in the halls of the legislature, and policy is written now based on what they're saying, not what we're saying for them. So it's a massive transformation from those dark days of institutionalization to today. And there's a lot more opportunities and possibilities available today than there were back then.
That's awe-inspiring. I mean, that's really impressive.
For me, it was a real privilege to have a career that spanned that time, because I was able to be part of it.
The whole thing.
And that really made a difference for me personally.
Right. Dr. Hartzell, could you share just a little bit, what has been your experience with, we used to be Community Association for Rehabilitation. How did you get involved?
Well, we had a son born about 50 years ago who turned out to have developmental handicaps, and we were desperate. It's a very disappointing experience when a parent finds that their child is handicapped. And it just happened that at that time, it was then called CAR, became Abilities United, had a nursery school program run by Marie Mong, bless her, who helped us to know how to deal with Ben and introduced us to other parents who were going through similar experiences, which gave us a little perspective. And then through the years, as we experienced his life, I was in pediatric practice and saw a lot of children with other handicaps. Parents brought their children to me. I was a little bit more knowledgeable about the community resources. And so through the years, I became more and more involved with Abilities United, served on the board, was board president, and still have a lot of room in my heart for support of Abilities United.
And how do you feel knowing the huge jump that this field has taken? How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm proud to have been part of it. It's a very frustrating area because it doesn't have much government support anymore. About 40 years ago, legislation was passed in California to make these services provided, but gradually the funding for those services has become reduced, so that now fundraising is a big part of our activity.
Yeah, it is, and fortunately we're moving forward in that. And there's, like Linda was saying, there's been a lot of positive advancements and some not so hot advancements, and it's all part of moving forward.
Well, it's exciting to see that the community has come along with us. It used to be that parents felt shame taking a handicapped child to the shopping center.
Right.
And we hope that during that 50 years, most people have come to see that these individuals are us. They're our children, our neighbors, our friends.
Right.
And we have found a place where they can serve and be active in the community.
And not only that, they probably go to the store where one of our participants possibly could be working.
Is now working. I was just going to say one of the major changes in the community really has been the willingness of companies in the area to employ people with developmental and physical challenges. And back, say even 20 years ago, that was seen as an act of charity. Now, those same companies see it as a good business decision because all of their workers' productivity improves when they hire people with disabilities. And so it's a major change in their thinking, and they now seek us out for people that we can refer to them to be hired into their companies. So it's we've seen that transformation, and it is a major transformation.
And it's exciting because our participants have so many gifts and talents that were not tapped before. And now we're seeing what a special, they have really good work qualities as well.
Well, back in the day, they weren't even seen as people in their own right, and let alone having talents, skills, and abilities that they can bring to enrich a community, which is what's happening today. So.
Right. Speaking of talents and abilities, let's take a look at our video with the work that we do at Ronald McDonald House in Palo Alto.
We are a home away from home and supportive community for families that have children with some serious life-threatening illnesses that are being treated at a local children's hospital here.
Well, each time they come, I'm responsible for making sure that they have all the equipment ready to clean our vents, to clean our, to sanitize the inside and vacuum the interior of the vents.
And the group comes in bi-weekly and helps clean the vans completely, They clean the outside and the inside of our vans, vacuum, really sanitize everything.
Clean the vans and clean the seats, clean the windows. A lot of windows they clean.
I like cleaning the vents and the windows and I like cleaning the outside of wheels and
They really like vehicles and they don't own cars of their own, so to be able to come to a place where their job is to clean a car, how great is that?
Many of our kids that are staying here are immunosuppressed, have compromised immune systems, and are in the van almost daily. So it's really important for their safety that we have very, very clean vans.
Cleanliness, it's a big part of our job.
It's nice to clean the vans. You don't want to get sick or insurance. It's nice to clean all the windows.
The Abilities United group also helps out around the house, wiping down tables in our community dining room. They also help with some vacuuming in the hallways. They also do some washing of our wagons. It's really important that we maintain a healthy and clean and safe environment for the kids and the families staying here. Having the group come in, a few times throughout the month to fill in those gaps where our staff can't get to definitely helps out the families as a whole.
Helping is pretty good. Helping kids is like helping a lot of kids are pretty good to help with.
It's very inspirational for the participants to be here. They're a great group.
I love working with them.
I like to work in Ramadan House.
They're punctual. They have such a level of enthusiasm when they're here, and we absolutely adore them here at the house.
Well, I wish you guys could stay here for as long as we always stay open.
I feel very happy seeing the group come in, clean vehicles, knowing that it's benefiting the children here at the Ronald McDonald House.
We hope that they stay here forever, frankly. We love working with the Abilities United group.
Cleaning the vans makes me feel good.
It feels good to help other people.
Oh, I love to see our work up at the Ronald McDonald House. We have the distinguished Dr. Heidi Feldman with us today. She is a professor of pediatrics at Stanford University Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Feldman.
Thank you so much for having me.
Could you just give us a little bit of an overview about your area of interest and what you're studying?
Yes, so I'm a developmental behavioral pediatrician. And that's a pediatrician that has gone through special training to focus on children with developmental delays or developmental disorders or behavioral disorders. This is a field that's pretty new. So the beginning of the training programs were about 50 years ago. And they were few and far between. They were very different one to the other. They get more and more came online in the 70s, and then toward the late 1980s and into the 1990s, pediatrics realized they needed this subspecialty to exist and to be more formal. So at the end of the 1990s, we developed an accreditation program, and now I'm a board-certified developmental behavioral pediatrician.
Wow, so do you limit your practice, or do you see everyone in the community, or is it a mix of?
My practice includes children who may have developmental disorders because, let's say, they were born prematurely, or children who do have developmental disorders, sometimes intellectual disorders, physical disorders, or sensory disorders. So across the country, developmental behavioral pediatricians sometimes subspecialize. I like to be more generalist.
Okay, that's very interesting. What, along that same line, what would you say, as you said, it's been recently that the field of medicine has even embarked on this whole field.
Absolutely.
What are some of the strengths and some of the not so strong points where medicine has gotten involved in this area?
A little bit like Linda Steele, I feel like I've been in my career in pediatrics through an incredibly dynamic and exciting time. So if you think back 50 years ago, there weren't a lot of capabilities for taking care of children in general, and in particular children with disabilities. So we've done a lot of things. One thing is we've been able to prevent some disabilities. So if you think back to the 50s, we developed the polio vaccine, and in the 60s, just about 50 years ago, we developed the measles vaccine. And that's done a lot to cut down on disabilities, particularly hearing loss and vision impairment. So that's one really important contribution, the prevention of disabilities. Another contribution that medicine has made is in extending the lives of people with disabilities. So here's an example. Children with Down syndrome, about half of them are born with a hole in the heart. Sometimes it's a very large hole, and it really disrupts blood flow in the body. So about 50 years ago, those children usually succumbed very early to their heart disease. They died at a very young age. And the surgical techniques that allow those hearts to be repaired and allow the children to live into adulthood have been perfected over the last 50 years. So that extends the lives of people with disabilities. Now, at the same time, medicine creates individuals with disabilities too, and probably a good example there is in the care of children with prematurity or preterm birth. So the wife of the President of the United States, Jackie Kennedy, had a baby born about 6 weeks early in the 1960s, 1963, and that baby died. We didn't know how to take care of a baby born 6 weeks early. These days, we take care of babies born 16 weeks early. So it has been, again, a dramatic change. So I think medicine has done a lot in the field of disabilities. But the attitudes of doctors have actually been improved through working with the community, through working with individuals, their families, and their advocates. And sometimes those advocates have had to drag doctors to appreciate the kinds of things that Linda and Dr. Hartzell were talking about, the role that people with disabilities can play, the positive role that they can play in community.
What do you think makes it tough for them to embrace this field?
Well, you know, the medical model is used to dealing with infectious diseases. They're short term, they have a single cause. If you give the right medicine, it's over. But disabilities aren't like that. They're long term, they have multiple contributions, and the goal is not to cure the person. The goal is to maximize their function. So I think we need to shift into a period where we recognize that the role of medicine isn't just prevention and cure, but includes enhancing function. And that will allow us to serve more effectively.
Right. And what would you just generally say parents can do to help facilitate that process?
Well, parents have to see themselves on the healthcare team. They have to be very well educated about their children's condition. They have to be willing to roll up their sleeves and work regularly with their children, following through on whatever the recommendations are, maybe administering medications, but probably more likely doing therapeutic exercises and participating in education, communicating, being willing to take their children into the community and give them a wide range of diverse and exciting experiences, and being really positive and hopeful, allowing the child to find his or her role in the community.
This is such an interesting topic, and the exciting piece is that we only have a few minutes to talk about it right now, but in this spring we're going to do a whole webinar on exactly this topic, so we'll get to talk about it a little bit more, which will be really exciting. I think we've got a couple of quick questions from the audience, so let's take one real quickly. Do we have a question? Go ahead.
Hi. In a child with ADHD, especially if it's a really young child, is medication the best option, or are there other ways we can go?
Okay, thank you for that question. So in the beginning of my career, we didn't recognize that children might even present with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, at an early age. And we waited until they were school age and maybe failing before we began to act. These days we can recognize early on that some children are very active. It's not necessarily true that the children who are active at young ages will invariably become ADHD at older ages, but they're at higher risk. And behavior management is an outstanding way to work with preschoolers who are very active. And basically what you do with behavior management is you change the child's motivation. You give them rewards for being organized, for concentrating, for curbing some of their impulses, and you give them consequences when they can't do that are gentle, kind, and compassionate. And over time, if the child lives in an environment that encourages attention and focus, they develop attention and focus.
Really good questions. We could go on with a whole bunch of questions because I know there's a lot of information to get. But like I said, this is just the beginning. So we are starting, this is the first day of our anniversary. We've got the whole year ahead to celebrate. We're going to be doing more webinars with Dr. Feldman come this spring, so stay tuned to Abilities United and we'll keep you posted on the information. I'd like to thank all of our guests today for coming. We really appreciate the information.
Thank you for allowing us.
Thank you so much for joining us here at Abilities United. And remember that everyone makes a difference in the community and that we are all together. Thank you for joining us at Abilities United.